hard for a big settlement now, when if you push hard and let the American people vote in 2012 and get rid of these hooligans in the House, we might actually have a reasonable settlement, maybe more like a 1-to-1 relationship instead of 3-to-1 or worse.
You know, the challenge I have in these negotiations is, whether I like it or not, I've got to get the debt ceiling limit raised. Well, I'll answer that question later, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands defaulting is not an option. There's some on either side that are suggesting that somehow we could manage our way through, but I just want everybody to be clear. The United States government sends out about 70 million checks every month. We have to refinance bonds that we've issued, essentially IOUs to investors. We do that every week. If suddenly investors, and by the way, a lot of those investors are Americans who have treasury bills, pension funds, etc., if suddenly they started thinking that we might not pay them back on time, at the very least, at the bare minimum, they would charge a much higher interest rate to allow the United States to borrow money. And if interest rate costs go up for the United States, they're probably going to go up for everybody. So it would be indirect tax on every single one of them. Your credit card interest rates would go up, your mortgage interest would go up, your student loan interest would potentially go up. And ironically, the costs of servicing our deficit would go up, which means it would actually potentially be worse for our debts if we had default. It could also plunge us back into the kind of recession we had back in 2008 and 9. So, it is not an option for us to default. My challenge then is, I've got to get something passed, I've got to get 218 votes in the House of Representatives. Now, the gentleman asked about the 14th Amendment. There's a provision in our Constitution that speaks to making sure that the United States meets its obligation. They're not persuaded that that is a winning argument. So the challenge for me is to make sure that we do not default, but to do so in a way that is as balanced as possible and gets us at least a down payment on solving this problem. Now, we're not going to solve the entire debt deficit in the next 10 days. So there's still going to be more work to do after this. And what we're doing is to try to make sure that any deal that we strike protects our core commitments to Medicare and Medicaid recipients, to senior citizens, to veterans. We want to make sure that student loans remain affordable. We want to make sure that poor kids can still get a checkup, that food stamps are still available for folks who are desperately in need. We want to make sure that unemployment insurance continues for those who are out there looking for work. So there are going to be a certain set of equities that we're not willing to sacrifice. And I've said we have to have revenue as part of the package. But I'm sympathetic to your view that this would be easier if I could do this entirely on my own. It would mean all these conversations I've had over the last 3 weeks. I could have been spending time with Marie and Sasha instead. But that's not how our democracy works. And as I said, Americans made a decision about divided government. I'm going to be making a case as to why I think we've got better vision for the country. In the meantime, we've got a responsibility to do our work. So that's the question. Thank you. All right. Now, right in front. Hold on. Let's get you a mic so we can hear you. Stand up. What's your name?
My name is Tasha.